June 1945. The war in Europe had been over for less than a month when a massive explosion rocked a city in the western part of Germany. The blast ripped through a US military outpost, killing more than 40 civilians and American servicemen. While many blamed the disaster on an unexploded bomb dropped by Allied planes prior to the Axis surrender, others feared the incident was the work of the werewolves. Werwolf was a Nazi plan which began development in 1944 to create a resistance force which would operate behind enemy lines as the Allies advanced through Germany. How and by whom the name was chosen is unknown, but it may have alluded to the title of a novel, Der Werwolf, first published in 1910. Set during the 30 Years' War, the novel concerns a peasant named Wolf. After marauding soldiers kill his family, Wolf organizes his neighbors into a militia who pursue the soldiers mercilessly and execute any they capture, while referring to themselves as Werwölfe. In autumn 1944, Heinrich Himmler initiated Operation Werwolf, ordering SS Obergruppenführer Hans-Adolf Prützmann to begin organizing an elite troop of volunteer forces to operate secretly behind enemy lines. As initially conceived, these werewolf units were intended to be legitimately uninformed military formations trained to engage in clandestine operations behind enemy lines in the same manner as Allied special forces. Prützmann had studied the guerrilla tactics used by Soviet partisans while stationed in the occupied territories of Ukraine, and the idea was to teach these tactics to the members of Operation Werwolf. The chief training center in the West was Hülkrad Castle, which by early 1945 was training around 200 recruits, mostly drawn from the Hitler Youth. Werwolf originally had about 5,000 members recruited from the SS and the Hitler Youth. These recruits were specially trained in guerrilla tactics. Werwolf agents were supposed to have at their disposal a large assortment of weapons, from fireproof coats to Lilliput pistols, but in reality this was merely on paper. Werwolf never actually had the necessary equipment, organization, morale, or coordination. Given the dire supply situation German forces were facing in 1945, the commanding officers of existing Wehrmacht units were unwilling to turn over what little equipment they still had for the sake of an organization whose actual strategic value was doubtful. Attempts were made to bury explosives, ammunition and weapons around the country to be used by Werwolf in resistance fighting after the defeat of Germany, but by that point the movement itself was so disorganized that few actual members or leaders knew where the materials were. Some historians have argued that Werwolf never amounted to a serious threat. After retreating to the Black Forest, some werewolf members continued resisting the occupation until at least 1947, possibly until 1950. However, US Army intelligence reports characterized Nazi partisans as nomad bands and considered their sabotage and subversive activities to be insignificant. Werewolf violence failed to mobilize a spirit of popular national resistance. The only achievement of the werewolves was to spark distrust of the German populace in the Allies as they occupied Germany. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and support my channel on PayPal. Details in the description box.